Think about the last time you got a raise. Not your first one. One of the later ones, the kind that came after years of proving yourself, after the uncomfortable conversation with your manager, after waiting longer than you thought was fair. You remember the number. You did the math in your head. You thought about what it meant. A little more breathing room, a little less anxiety at the end of the month, maybe finally getting ahead of something instead of just keeping up with it. 6 months later, you checked your bank account. The balance at the end of the month looked almost identical to what it looked like before the raise. Not because you went on vacation, not because something unexpected happened. The money just went. The same way it always went. Somehow, your expenses had quietly expanded to fill every dollar of the increase, and you were left in exactly the same position as before, just with a higher income and the same feeling that something wasn't working. That's not a discipline problem. That's not a character flaw. That's what happens when income grows, but the system underneath it stays exactly the same. Here's the thing nobody explains clearly enough. Income and wealth are not the same thing. They're not even close to the same thing. And the confusion between the two is where most people's financial lives quietly go wrong. Income is what you receive in exchange for your time and effort. Show up, produce, get paid. Stop showing up, stop getting paid. The moment you're not actively working, the income stops. That's the fundamental limit. And it's a hard one. There are only so many hours available. There's a ceiling, and most people spend their entire careers pressing against it without ever breaking through. Wealth is different. Wealth is what generates value without requiring your presence, an asset that appreciates while you sleep, an investment that compounds while you're at dinner. A system that produces something, income, growth, opportunity, independent of whether you showed up today. The people who build real financial freedom aren't necessarily the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who figured out at some point that the goal isn't a bigger paycheck. It's owning something that works when you don't. Your salary is designed to keep you functional. It covers rent, food, transportation, the basics of staying operational as an employee. It's not designed to make you free. That was never its purpose, and expecting it to do something it wasn't designed to do is where most people get stuck working harder, earning more, and somehow never actually getting further ahead. So why doesn't knowing this change anything? Because knowing isn't the problem. Almost everyone understands, on some level, that they should save more, invest more, spend less on things that don't matter. The information isn't what's missing. What's missing is a system that makes the right behavior happen automatically without requiring you to make the correct decision every single day, every single transaction, every single moment when spending feels easier than saving. Discipline is exhausting, not because you're weak, but because it's genuinely expensive in terms of mental energy. Every time you choose between saving and spending, you're making a decision. And decisions drain you. At the end of a long day, after dozens of small choices, the part of your brain responsible for long-term thinking is running on empty. That's when the subscription you didn't need gets renewed. That's when the dinner out becomes an expensive dinner out. That's when the impulse wins. Willpower is unreliable over a month. It's almost completely unreliable over a decade. Systems aren't. A system doesn't get tired. It doesn't negotiate with itself at the end of a hard week. It just runs. The wealthiest people you've ever observed don't have more self-control than everyone else. They've built structures that make the right financial behavior the default, so that doing the wrong thing actually requires effort, while doing the right thing requires nothing at all. The framework that actually works isn't complicated, but the order of operations matters more than the percentages. Most people approach money the same way. Income arrives, expenses get paid, lifestyle gets funded, and whatever's left at the end of the month, if anything, gets saved. The problem with this approach is that there is almost never anything left at the end of the month. Spending expands to fill whatever space is available. It's not a moral failing. It's just how humans work when there's no structure in place. The shift is simple but counterintuitive. You pay your future first. Before the bills, before the groceries, before the anything. The moment income hits your account, a portion moves automatically to growth, to protection, before you've had a chance to mentally spend it on something else. Not when you feel motivated, not when it feels convenient. Automatically, the day the money arrives. This single change moving the order of operations does more than any budgeting app, any financial goal, any amount of motivation. Because once the money has moved, it's already gone from your available mental balance. You don't feel deprived. You just adjust to what's there. The first allocation is for growth. This is the portion that's going to do the actual work of building your future investments, assets, things that compound over time. The specific percentage matters less than the habit of separating it before you see it. Even a modest amount, invested consistently for long enough, produces something that would be almost impossible to achieve through income alone. Not because of any magical investment strategy, because of time and consistency. Where does it go? Not into individual stocks, not into anything complicated. The starting point is broad. Diversified exposure to the overall market. The kind of investment that doesn't require you to be right about any particular company or sector, just right about the general direction of the economy over decades. From there, as your foundation grows, you can layer in additional exposure. Real estate through investment vehicles you can buy with a single share. Individual companies and industries you understand and believe in. But the foundation comes first. Simple, boring, automatic. And here's what most people miss. The highest return investment you can make early in your career often isn't financial at all. A skill that makes you significantly more valuable that compounds directly into your income can produce returns that no market investment matches in the short term. Growth allocation isn't just about the market. It's about anything that multiplies your capacity to build. The second allocation is for protection. This is not an investment. It's not supposed to generate exciting returns. It's a buffer, 3 to 5 months of essential expenses sitting in something liquid and stable, available immediately if something goes wrong. The reason most people's financial progress keeps getting reset isn't bad investment decisions. It's emergencies. A car repair that becomes a credit card balance. A medical expense that wipes out the progress of 6 careful months. Without a dedicated buffer, every unexpected cost becomes a financial crisis, and the solution is always the worst possible one. Selling investments early, taking on high-interest debt, or raiding the account you promised yourself you wouldn't touch. The protection fund doesn't make you rich. It makes sure you stay in the game long enough for everything else to work. The third allocation covers essentials, the real costs of living. Rent, food, utilities, transportation, insurance, the things that aren't optional. And the critical discipline here is treating this as a hard ceiling, not a starting point. Because this is where lifestyle inflation does its quiet damage. Every time income increases, there's a natural pressure to upgrade. A slightly nicer apartment, a newer car, better restaurants as the default, not the occasion. Each individual upgrade feels reasonable. You worked hard, you deserve it. It's not that much more. But the cumulative effect is that your fixed costs rise in lockstep with your income, and you end up exactly where you started, fully extended, with no margin. The person who looks financially successful and the person who is financially free are often living completely different realities. One is spending to appear a certain way. The other is accumulating quietly, driving the older car, living in the reasonable apartment, building something that doesn't require performance. When you hold your essential spending to a defined ceiling, you're forced to ask a question that most people avoid. Is this something I actually need? Or is this something I've convinced myself I need because I earn more now? The two biggest wealth killers are almost always housing and transportation. People take the largest mortgage they qualify for, then wonder why they can't save. They finance a car because the monthly payment feels manageable, without accounting for what that same money would become if it were invested over the same period. The monthly payment feels small. The decade-long opportunity cost is enormous. The fourth allocation is for enjoyment. And this one matters more than it sounds. Systems that require complete deprivation always fail eventually. Cut too hard, restrict too severely, and at some point, the resentment wins. You break the system in a single weekend and spend months recovering the progress you lost. The enjoyment allocation exists not as a reward for good behavior, but as a structural release valve, a fixed percentage, not a fixed amount, set aside for whatever you actually want to spend it on. No guilt required, because it was planned. No justification needed, because it was already accounted for. And here's the shift that happens when you have a dedicated fund for this. You stop spending impulsively on things that don't even satisfy you. The impulse buy loses its power when you know you have a designated amount coming for exactly this purpose. You spend less overall and enjoy it more because you're spending deliberately instead of reactively. Here's what this actually looks like in practice. Income arrives. Automatically, before you touch it, a portion moves to your investment account and triggers a purchase. Another portion moves to your protection fund until it's fully built, then gets redirected to growth. What remains is what you actually have to work with for the month essentials and enjoyment in proportions you've decided in advance, not in the moment when spending feels easy. The decision gets made once, then the system runs. 6 months in, nothing dramatic has happened. Your lifestyle looks roughly the same, but quietly, in the background, something is building something that doesn't require your attention, doesn't need you to remember to do it, doesn't depend on you feeling motivated on a Tuesday afternoon. That's how money compounds. Not dramatically, not visibly, just quietly, automatically, day after day, until one day the number is large enough that it changes what's possible. You've gotten raises before. The money arrived, felt like progress, and disappeared in a way you couldn't quite trace. The next raise is coming. Another increase. Another moment where the gap between where you are and where you want to be could either close or quietly vanish into the same pattern. The only thing that changes the outcome isn't the amount. It's what happens in the first hour after the money lands. If you built the system today, what would be different next month?